Story 1. My fiancé is extremely frugal and cheap. I plan on calling off the wedding, leaving him and ghosting him because of this. I 31F. Struggle with my fiancé's 32M. Frugalness and am not sure if I want to marry him anymore after a 3-year relationship. Throw away as my fiancé follows my regular account. I met my fiancé 3 years ago. He came out of an abusive marriage just 2 years before we met. One of her absolute abuses was financial. She bled him dry, made him buy expensive jewelry only to give it away or break it after an argument. Designer shoes, clothes, a big house, cars, trips, you name it, she made him pay for it. She also took him to the cleaners in the divorce. However, my fiancé is very well off. He makes far over 6 figures, almost 7. On top of that, he inherited a few million from his grandfather, and his parents gifted him and his siblings also a few cool million. So yes, the financial abuse was bad, but he does not suffer financially. He has more money than he will ever need. So last year I moved into his house. I do not pay rent, but I split the bills and buy food. I pay for my own clothes and jewelry. I have a good job and I can take care of myself. However, things have been taking a turn for the worse, and I feel miserable. His house was empty when I moved in. He had hand-me-down furniture, maybe 3 forks and 2 knives. He wouldn't put on the heating, so the house felt cold and moldy. He has no curtains, no decorations. His ex took everything not bolted down and he was too cheap to replace it. Just imagine $1 million house like that. I am grateful that I can live in his house. It is something I could never afford myself, but I didn't want to live in squalor, so I bought some kitchen supplies, some furniture. But at some point, I realized I was dipping into my savings all the time, and he did nothing. I looked into curtains, but those things are expensive. His house has so many windows, it is crazy. I didn't want to pay for this anymore. I told him I needed a fund to furnish his house. He blew up at me, saying that I was just with him for his money. I pointed out all the money I spend on his house, the gifts, and the trips because he pays for nothing ever because he wants to be sure I am not here for the money. The fact is, if we break up, I have nothing. The house is not mine. If I spend all my savings on his house, I will be left with absolutely nothing. He wants a prenup and I am fine with that, but I can't help but feel used. Next to that, I am jealous of his ex-wife. I feel like she got treated, and I am neglected. He proposed to his ex on a cruise with a $110,000 white gold diamond ring. I got the rhodium-plated Swarovski stuff that might cost like $100. The proposal was at a picnic in the park. I organized it, paid groceries for it, and slaved in the kitchen for it. I almost said no out of pure disappointment. However, I'm afraid to bring it up and to be called a gold digger. I don't want to be funding a millionaire's lifestyle. He loves everything as long as I pay for it. As soon as he has to pay, it is frivolous, unnecessary. I can live like a poor person by myself. At least the fact that there are literal millions lying around doesn't hang over me to bum me out, and I would just be paying for my own lifestyle. Would I be the a-hole for calling off a wedding purely for financial reasons? Because I love this man, but I imagine our cheap wedding in contrast to his ex's extravaganza. Will our future kids be able to have some luxuries, or only if I pay for it? What if I ever become a stay-at-home mom? Will I have to beg to put the heating on? Edited to answer questions I see a lot. I know the abuse AB is not made up. His family and friends told me separate stories of the abuse they witnessed. Not only did it confirm it, it showed me she was way more terrible than I thought. Like stealing heirloom jewelry of his grandma with Alzheimer's right after she was widowed, pretending she was gifted these things even though everyone knew grandma hated her guts. I did not realize or see he is doing the same to me as she was to him, and he is subconsciously punishing me for what was done to him. I am not trying to force a lifestyle on him where he was previously happy in. He told me prior to moving in that he left his house like this because he was depressed after his wife took everything, even the curtains, that it makes him sad, and he wants a cozy home. He just didn't know where to start. His house is paid off thanks to Granddad. He isn't actually spending much on utilities either. The house is very well isolated and has solar panels. It is weird to see how cheap being rich really is. I am not asking for designer furniture. IKEA all the way, and I have refurbished second-hand furniture myself. I am actually pretty thrifty. I see where my jealousy over the ex's lifestyle might have triggered some people. Let me explain. A $10,000 ring is insane and stupid to me. I do not want that because I would fear for losing it every day. I don't need an over-the-top wedding. However, it almost feels like for her, he did effort, wanted to give her what made her happy, put effort and thought into it. With me, it almost feels like he wants to prove how little he can give me. He talked about how he would see the wedding, and it is cheaper than my actually financially struggling cousin's wedding. I can't help but feel he wants to demonstrate how cheap he can treat me, and I already feel embarrassed about the family that would have been to both, and I will feel like the discount wife. I don't like to say it, but it feels like he gets off on it to some extent. We are almost talking washing paper plates at this moment. Yes, I did discuss selling the mansion I really don't need and move to a more modest house, especially knowing this is the house his ex picked. He doesn't want to do that. He loves this house, but I feel really intimidated living in a house I could never afford anyway. And so many large windows. Sheesh. I haven't talked to him yet, but I am pausing on the marriage, and counseling is a must. I already am looking for IC because I realized I might indeed be too much of a people pleaser for him to control me with the ghost of his ex. I also am going to separate for a while. I am looking to rent something for a few months so I can get some space. Thank you all for your insights. Update. Okay. I hope this update makes sense because I am very confused and not really doing that well at the moment. Well, Reddit, you changed my life. Thank you so much for all your ideas and insights. Honestly, I don't think I would have had the courage to do what I did without you guys. I went to therapy, took the day off just to get my racing mind to calm down. Therapy has confirmed things you guys suspected. I am a people pleaser. I wanted to save him, and I have internalized the idea that any effort and every penny I want him to spend on me makes me a gold digger. I will have weekly sessions to work on me. I realized I would have never taken this treatment from any of my exes, even though I made more than them. The idea I had to prove myself worthy to be with a millionaire and not being there for the money got into my head pretty early. I called one of his siblings I am pretty close with and just told her everything. She was not surprised but just sad about how unhappy he was making me. She told me that from the day we started, he had this idea that I was out of his league. He struggled to understand why I wanted to be with him, and he probably just thought it must be my money. She told me she already talked to him in the past to treat me better. She was furious about the proposal. This information confused me a little. I was a little hurt she never discussed any of this before, but she thought it was none of her business. She also explained how she and her husband organized their finances. He also doesn't have as much as her. I took the opportunity to pack a bag. I haven't found a place yet, but I am going to stay with my parents. I made up my mind that I will at least want 6 months apart to get myself in order. I made sure my stuff was in the car because honestly, I had no idea how the conversation would go. So into the most difficult part, the talk. I waited for him to come home. He was pretty late, but I didn't want to sleep another night on this pretending I was fine while I was contemplating all this. Just ate me up. I had written down what I wanted to say. I have never been so scared before. I didn't want to hurt him and I didn't know how he would react. I took some advice from here. I opened that I was moving out and that I wanted to pause our engagement. He was very quiet and just sat down. I told him he really hurt me by calling me a gold digger and that I am done walking on eggshells and feeling guilty for just wanting basic things. I told him I was unhappy and felt neglected. I also told him that after 3 years of me showing up for him, he still doesn't think I am here for him. It is not going to happen. He was just quiet. He didn't say anything. I told him that the constant comparing to his ex was unhealthy and unfair. Punishing me for her sins was abusive. I told him comparing her to me all the time has triggered me comparing myself to her and starting to feel like she was worth more than me. One of the things about her was mostly ungratefulness. He would do nice things for her, but it was never enough. The thing is, he doesn't do nice things for me, and I have to be grateful for the pleasure of picking up the bill. I told him he was not ready for marriage, that I dreaded having kids with him and live like this, that I didn't trust he would take care of me if I would become a stay-at-home mom. And at that point, I just called him abusive and a user. I was getting pretty angry saying all this out loud, losing my composure and script a little bit. He remained quiet with almost no emotion on his face. I stayed quiet, but nothing came out, so I decided that I would just leave. Only when I got up to go, he said, "Please don't go." He asked me if I was pausing the wedding or calling it off. He wanted to know if it was over or if he still had a shot. I told him I wanted out of this house. I honestly don't want to live in his ex's palace of sadness anymore. I needed him to go to therapy, and especially financial therapy. I needed a separation. I told him I was open to couples counseling if he went into IC. He begged me not to do the separation, but honestly, I really wanted it. I just told him to think about it and I left him. He was finally showing some emotions. He was crying at this point. He sent me a very long text somewhere in the morning, told me he was a wreck and couldn't sleep. He made all kinds of promises. He would go into therapy, sell his house, buy a smaller one, and make sure I am taken care of whatever happens. He said he would help me decorate and we will make a home. He again asked me to please come home, but to me it doesn't feel like home there anyway. I feel very empty and tired. I have been sleeping most of the day. I feel guilty but also a little bit relieved, if that makes sense. I don't know if I actually want back if he does all that. IDK. I am a little unsteady right now. I need some time to process. I will go back for the kitchen supplies and my TV. I won't take anything else of the furniture. This for the exact same reason I was unwilling to buy everything. His house is huge, so the couch is huge. I can't take it. Update 2. Hi everybody. Let me just say I am overwhelmed by the number of people really caring about me and asking for updates. Strangers who care about you is a feeling like no other. Thank you. So as I said, I left. I am looking for an apartment I can afford. My parents are helping out. I am living with them and saving up. I am not closing all doors, but as for now, we are broken up. I have no contact. The first week, he transferred a large amount to my account. It really rubbed me the wrong way. It just showed me that he still thought that money was what kept me here. I deducted the couch I left and transferred everything else back. I asked for no contact after this. He has been respectful of it, and I feel free at the moment. I felt guilty for my needs for wanting to be taken out every once in a while. The longer I am out, the harder I realize it was abuse. I have an autoimmune problem, and the cold house caused it to flare up. Even after that, he kept turning the heat down. He'd rather have me miserable than pay what $100 extra in the end of the year. The last thing I heard is that he put the Palace of Sadness on the market. I have seen the ads. So happy he is going through with that. I heard from his sister that he is in therapy. I am happy for that, and I hope he keeps that up. He is keeping his promises so far, but I need to see real change, and even then, I really don't know. I am building my own life by myself. Thinking about getting a puppy. If I give him another shot, it has to start all from scratch. I want to start dating again and take it slow. Therapy is really a good idea. I now know I was just bringing this on myself as a people-pleaser savior, wanting this man to be happy so bad. I forgot about myself. Never again. So that is all there is to say, really. Update 3. Thank you for everyone reaching out to me. I have closed in on a little apartment for myself. I got a puppy. After being in a home where I was truly loved by my parents, I realized how sad, cold, and alone I had been over time. I went blind for a lot of things. Blind to a comfortable home temperature, comfortable with thinking about every penny spent, feeling guilty for buying that dress I wanted for so long that was finally on sale, feeling entitled for wanting date nights, being treated sometimes. I started to think about what makes me happy. I love to travel, dress up to go to a nice restaurant, throw dinner parties, entertain people, think about Christmas gifts 6 months in advance, have a cozy house. And I realized just how much he had taken from me with that one little sentence. Is that really necessary? Is anything ever, if you have a roof, food, bed, and a TV, you are there, right? Is travel necessary? Is having nice clothes necessary? Is a shower necessary? A haircut? Party? A hobby? A wedding? No. I know now that abusers are not per definition bad people. He is broken and he has trauma. I have no time or energy for him. He got free from abuse and decided to become the abuser. I know he is in therapy and we initially agreed on 6 months no to low contact, but I felt I was certain it was not for me anymore, and I didn't want to keep him dangling. Breaking up with him was very hard. It made me very sad. I never wanted to hurt him, and I love this man very deeply. I wanted us to be each other's happy ever after. We both came from dark places, and I wanted us to thrive together. His family told me I was the one. I was everything he was looking for, and I felt so lucky. But we only have one life, and he has so much work to do before he even becomes the bare minimum of what I needed. I feel failed, like my story has a bad ending. I feel very broken and sad. I will take my time to just be me. I hope he does the same. I truly hope he finds the one and becomes happy. Mostly, I hope that for myself, but for now, I am enough by myself. Thank you all for your time and support. I am going to have a little cry in some fluffy fur. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Before we start, if you're enjoying this video so far, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Now let's continue. I'm worried that our relationship will be broken by my BF's close female friend. I've been with my fiancé Joe for a couple of years now. We have a great relationship. He's funny and talented, and we have a lot of fun together. But there's always been one big issue, Natalie. Joe and Nat are really close friends. It borders on unhealthy codependency for sure. When we met, they were living together too, but she was out of the country, so I didn't meet her until we'd been together a couple of months. They also worked together, artist/musician, when we started dating. Joe gave me a disclaimer about them and their close relationship, but I didn't really know what I was getting into. Once I met her, I understood it. She's the prettiest person I've ever seen in my life. I heard a lot about her, but no one told me she looked like a supermodel. It was jarring too because Joe is just average. They started writing music again together and performing, which meant a lot of time alone. I also was under the impression that their band involved multiple people, but it's just the two of them. Natalie always invited me for practice and whatnot, but TBH, being around them made me feel like a third wheel. Then I saw them perform, and for some reason they decided to cover this song, which felt like a slap in the face to me, especially given the context of the movie. It's not even their genre, and I was extra upset because there's that line, "You can always come in my back door." And we have issues because I don't like anal. She even bent over and gave a little wink, and it made me so mad. Joe laughed it off and said the song was funny and gets a good crowd response. And also, they're affectionate. I mean, they're not kissing each other, but always close. Well, anyway, she ended up traveling a lot for a long period of time for some good career opportunity. I had to talk Joe out of joining her, and things got a lot better with us. We even got engaged, and it was great. Then, for Christmas, we went to his home country so I could meet his family, and think went sideways. As first off, Nat was in every family photo going back years. Then his mom was asking about Nat and later saying she was going to be out to visit next week. Joe had a bit too much to drink at this point and got emotional about that, saying he wished he would have known because he would have changed our plans. I pulled him aside and told him I wasn't comfortable with how intertwined she was with his family, especially if we were going to get married. I asked if something could be done about that, and he laughed in my face and told me that I could be the one to try to bring that up with his mom. So I did, and his mom looked at me like I slapped her, and then the whole family got upset. Joe got really mad at me and we left. Apparently, she was a foreign exchange student or something, and they were immediately best friends. They were weird kids and didn't have other friends before each other. Every year, they alternated staying with their families between Ireland and Germany. I never knew about this, but there were things like we were watching a movie once, and a character was speaking German and Joe was able to translate. When I asked him WTF, he speaks German. He gave me a weird look and was like, "Yeah, that's where Nat is from." Then, when they were teenagers and the two were in Ireland, Nat's family was killed back in her country, and so she stayed there with his family until they moved out together. And they've basically been side by side since, for 15 plus years. They lived together and went to school together, and then lived together and worked together since they were like 12. Apparently, there was one school year their parents decided not to put them together, and they both reacted so hostile and began acting out with crime and drugs that their parents gave in. I didn't know this and started to wonder what else. I asked if they slept together, and yes, they sure did about 6 years ago for like a year. Then, one night, Nat kissed a guy, and Joe beat the crap out of him. They got in a fight and decided sex was complicating things and then just stopped. But then they also hooked up a few times since. I freaked out after all the "she's like my sister" stuff. Joe insisted it didn't mean anything, but WTF? He kept saying it was purely physical and there were no feelings, but if there weren't feelings, how did things get complicated then? Well, regardless, we managed to talk it out, but didn't go back to his parents. He argued that they were barely even friends anymore since he hasn't seen her in so long, and I did such a good job tearing them apart. I told him he asked me to marry him and should act like it. We fought for like 3 days until he got sick of it. Last week, he gets a call from her. I hear him get upset and argue. Then he starts to leave. I ask him WTF, he just said Natalie's in trouble, and he needs to go to her, and leaves. Just hopped on a plane and left just like that. If I wouldn't have asked, he probably wouldn't have even said a word to me. So naturally, I was pissed, and I started drinking and sent some angry messages. I basically told him that if he was going to leave like that and run to her, he made it clear he was choosing her over me, and he shouldn't bother coming home. His response was just okay, and that he would come back soon to get his stuff, which really pissed me off. Well, yesterday I talked to our mutual friend Chloe, who told me that Natalie was in a bad situation and called Joe from the hospital. I felt kind of bad then and wondered why Joe didn't tell me that detail. So I called him. It wasn't a good conversation. I told him I understood why he left, but since she's okay now, he should come home. He disagreed and flipped out on me, said that if I didn't keep them apart and put distance between them, she might have opened up to him about the things she was dealing with and he could have helped. He called me manipulative and jealous. I do feel bad, but I still think I didn't do anything that bad. Chloe told me she'd be surprised if Joe wants to work things out. I love him, but this situation is so weird. I just want some advice. Is our relationship salvageable? Is what I did that bad? Should we even bother, or should I just let him and Natalie do their weird, not a real couple? Edit. I just found out she tried to be with him, and he rejected her, and he didn't want to ruin their friendship. I'm so confused. Update 1. I'm worried that our relationship will be broken by my BF's close female friend. Hi everyone, it's me, the one from yesterday's post about my now ex-fiancé. I just want to first say that I really appreciate everyone's input and suggestions. It helped me so much and gave me the push to finally address what I already knew needed to be done. A lot of people asked for updates and a lot has happened in the last 24 hours, but the original post is locked, so I hope this is okay to post here. I've updated a few people through private messages and was told how to go about posting an update through there, so thank you everyone. Well, first off, I was angry and emotional yesterday, and I reached out to Sam, who used to date Natalie. I figured if anyone could relate to exactly WTF I was dealing with, it would be him. So we met up for some drinks. I'm not looking for a rebound type anything, just wanted someone who really understands. Apparently he asked way more questions, and Natalie was way more open with him than Joe was with me, and it filled in some blanks but also made things more confusing. Sam read the whole post and comments, then we started talking. First thing he clarified was the time they were sleeping together. So, for Sam, they were hooking up secretly for that year, and from what Natalie told Sam, God, this is tiring, it started as a way to relieve tension/boredom. The first time happened during a fight, which is so on brand for them that if I wasn't so angry, I'd laugh at that. They agreed to keep emotions out of it and just have fun. Apparently, Natalie said the sex was incredible because they're so close already, which is why they didn't just write it off as a one-time mistake. And then the reason the fight that ended things happened is Natalie was going to bring this other guy as her date with her to the party, and she made a joke like, "Unless you want to finally make this official, lol." And Joe's response was like, "No, I can't ruin our friendship like that," paraphrasing maybe. So Natalie went and brought that guy with, and then Joe got drunk and tried to kill him. So yeah, I don't know why Joe chose to leave out the details that he did. TBH, it probably would have made me feel a little more comfortable. So he left out those details, but Natalie told Sam those details and admitted to Sam when they broke up that no one will ever mean more to her than Joe. I applaud Sam for not blowing that up and letting everyone know. I'm not that nice, you guys. You'll be proud of me. After a few drinks with Sam, I took the advice that a lot of people gave me, but instead of just sending my last post to Joe, I sent it to our entire group chat that all of our friends are on, including Joe and Natalie, and then I waited. Most people didn't respond in the chat, but I started getting a lot of private texts from friends. But after a little while, Natalie responded, and I'll just copy her response here. Emma, I was going to talk to you privately, but since you decided doing things this way was your best option, I will follow suit. 1. Joe is just average. This is how you talk about a man you are supposed to love, especially considering he is not just average. 2. I had to talk Joe out of joining her, and it meant he missed out on a great opportunity just to appease you and your concerns. I even tried to invite you to come with us on the tour. You also mention him getting a real job and are rude about his talent. You have never supported him. 3. Yeah, you came to one of our performances the whole time and hated that song, and we stopped playing it even though you never came to another one. 4. I am sorry you didn't know the details of our friendship. I have tried to include you and befriend you and build a relationship with you, but you were too jealous to accept my effort. But maybe we could have talked about things and made you feel comfortable. You didn't even like to hear him talk about me. You also made the implication I did something drastic to get his attention to make him come out here on that. That is cruel considering circumstances. I wish I would have been around more so I would have realized sooner that he deserves so much better than you. I was honestly shocked to get that response, and I was wondering why the hell she didn't address the important stuff like being in love or the fact they've had sex. But anyway, chaos kind of broke out in the chat after that, and I didn't respond with anything. Just sat back and watched it all blow up. Well, Joe called me a little while after that and assured me he was alone. He was crying and apologizing to me, but not like begging for me back at all. He basically confirmed what I thought and everyone else was saying. He was apologizing for hurting me and straight up admitted he's totally in love with her and has been forever. They were even each other's first kiss. I told him I know she wanted a relationship with him. Sam told me so. WTF was he doing with me? He said he didn't realize the extent of her feelings for him. Thought it was just because the sex was good. He didn't want to admit he was madly in love with her, and basically he was worried that if they tried a relationship and things ended badly because she realized she could do better, their friendship would be ruined. He said their friendship was important enough to him that he'd prefer being quietly in love with her forever to trying something and ruining it. And that's kind of where I came in, I guess. He says he was in major denial about his feelings for her, and he hoped it would be easier to have her as just a friend if he tried to put his energy into a different relationship. I cried and yelled a lot and called him a lot of names. I'm still shaking. He admitted it was a horrible thing to do to me and says he never wanted to hurt me. Basically, he's insecure and it caused this whole storm. Obviously, things are completely done. From what it sounds like, with Joe saying he didn't realize the extent of her feelings, it sure sounds like he does now. So maybe seeing this post made her fess up. Good for them, I guess. I hate both of them, and I hope they make each other insane. I've thrown out a lot of his stuff, and instead of giving the ring back, I'm gonna go sell it and do something fun. Edit. A lot of people are calling them cheaters, but I would like to clear up that I'm 99.9% sure neither of them cheated on anyone aside from their constant emotional affair. Some of my wording might be confusing, and I apologize. I've calmed down a bit, and I'm pretty worried about Natalie, TBH. I feel like they're gonna be together, and he's gonna be all crazy and controlling, and things are gonna get really messy. The emotions with these two are way too dramatic. She's so love-struck and blinded by his admission of his feelings that she's going to defend him to the end. Poor girl. Update 2. My ex-fiancé had a long emotional affair that started before we met. Hi there, Reddit. I previously came to this site for advice when I discovered uncomfortable truths about my ex, and we broke up about a week ago. If anyone is curious, feel free to look at my post history, but it's a lot to read. Basically, his gorgeous best friend / adopted sister / bandmate and him are madly in love. I ignored the signs and red flags that popped up constantly until I couldn't anymore, and he finally admitted his feelings for her after keeping them repressed since they were teenagers. I'm not sure what I'm posting for now. I'm a little drunk and really sad and angry, and most of my friend group were friends with them first, and after the initial drama, most of those friends have already switched to thinking it's about time they're finally together. My family isn't too supportive, not in a bad way, that's just the nature of my family. We get uncomfortable talking about emotional things, which is probably why I willfully ignored the issues with my fiancé. TBH, I'm at a loss. He hasn't even picked up his stuff yet. I've been drinking and crying and obsessing over every detail of this whole screwed up situation. I feel like an idiot. Why did I stay for so long when he always put her before me? Why didn't I see what everyone else apparently did? He was just with me because he thought it would help him move past his feelings for her. I feel so used and unloved. I do have plans to get into therapy for multiple reasons. What do? I know it's only been a few days, but when does this start to not hurt so badly? I loved him so much, even when he flew out to her and abandoned me because she needed him. When I got upset and we fought, I still thought, how do I fix this? I'd be lying if I said I hadn't considered calling him, but it wouldn't do any good now that he has her. He'll never let her go, not even that I want him back. I just don't know. I've never gone through this. There's an actual aching in my chest, and I know the drinking is bad. I'm so fudging hurt. Update 3. Hope you're happy after ruining my life. All that for nothing. My life is in shambles and they're going off. I didn't even do anything wrong. I was devastated after my fiancé left and missed some work, and then I lost my job. My friends have abandoned me. I'm about to move back home. I moved out here for nothing. I moved out here so he could use me to realize how in love with her he is. I heard they're running away. I hope they die now. Now on to the next story. Story 3. My sister who is 19 is marrying her older teacher who is 36. My younger sister is getting married to her 36-year-old high school teacher in a few days, and everyone seems okay with it. She graduated a year ago, and they told us they were dating almost immediately after the graduation. I was shocked and angry, but everyone around me was happy and supportive of them. The teacher divorced his wife 2 years ago and started paying attention to my sister. He spoke to her after class regularly and paid special attention to her studies. I thought this was weird and talked to my sister about this, but she told me he was helping her because she was the best student of her class, which she was. A few months ago, only a few months into dating, they announced that they were engaged. I tried talking to my parents about their age difference and stuff, but they didn't want to hear it. I talked to my sister, and she told me she is happy and that she loves him. We live in a small town with a tight-knit community, and everyone else is supporting their marriage. I'm feeling useless right now, and I am angry at myself. I was unable to protect my sister. I feel like I failed my duties as an older sibling. I hate everyone around me. How do they not see what's going on here? Update 1. My sister who is 19 is marrying her older teacher who is 36. The marriage happened. I contemplated not going to the ceremony, but I didn't want to hurt my little sister, so I went reluctantly. My blood was boiling throughout the whole thing. Everyone who came to the ceremony congratulated them. I couldn't even look the teacher in the face because I was so angry at him. I hated the whole thing. I'm leaving this town tomorrow. I had some interviews lined up and got selected in one. It's in a city and I'm moving tomorrow. I can't stand these people. My parents think that getting married to a good guy with a stable job is the best thing that could have happened to my sister, and my relatives agreed. He groomed her. Why doesn't anyone else see that? I wanted to scream at everyone. When I told my sis I was leaving, she cried. I reassured her and told her that I wasn't angry at her. I made it clear to her that she could contact me anytime under any circumstances and that I'd be there for her. I bought her a phone and told her that I'd talk to her regularly. I tried to not antagonize anyone because I want them to reach out to me if anything happens. It was very hard to do. I came very close to fighting several people. My sister was a star student. I always thought that she would go to a big college and become someone significant, but now she's going to be a housewife. That thought is destroying me. I wasn't harsh on her because I'm hoping that she wakes up soon, and I want to be there for her when that happens. I want to support her and see her full potential, and I'm wishing it happens soon. Edit. I've told her not to have children until she's sure she has a contraceptive implant, and I told her not to get it removed for at least a couple of years. I told her to tell me if anyone ever pressured her to have it removed. I really hope she follows my advice. Edit. I'm just checking the comments, and the amount of people defending the teacher is insane. People like you are the problem. She was groomed since she was 16. Why can't you people see that? I wouldn't have any problem with her choices if she wasn't coerced into them. Him being an older man isn't my issue here. Him being her teacher is. Also, I don't think that being a housewife is bad. What I don't like is that the choice of something more is being taken away from my sister. As for the phone thing, my parents did not allow my sister to own a phone. She had to use the landline if she wanted to talk to people. That's why I bought her a phone. Update 2. My sister, who is 19, is marrying her older teacher, who is 36. I wanted to share an update on my sister's situation since it's been a year. The situation has changed significantly in a positive way since the marriage a year ago. I've made it a point to talk to my sister regularly on the phone that I gave her a few weeks in. Her husband started pushing her to be in a traditional wife role, which created a wedge between her and her friends, but I made sure to keep in touch and to visit her once every month. Her husband did not like that, but he tolerated it to keep up appearances. To deal with my frustrations, I joined a gym and started working out. Luckily, my boss at my job turned out to be a great lady who listened to me and gave me a lot of support and advice. She told me I could call her when I needed help and became my mentor and an older sister I could lean on while also paying me well. Some months into the marriage, her husband managed to domesticate her completely. She stopped going out almost entirely and had very little independence, and he tried to start separating my sister from me. However, because I kept a good and consistent relationship with her, he wasn't able to do it. A couple of months ago, he started hinting to my sister about wanting kids, but I kept repeating to my sister that she should not have children until a few years into marriage. Last month, he told her directly that he wanted children, and my sister told him that she wanted to wait. He started pressuring her to get her contraceptive implant removed. So last week, I went back home to talk to him. I always try to be polite to him whenever I visit their home so that he doesn't have any ammo to try to separate us. During conversation, I brought up that he was pressuring my sister to get her contraceptive implant removed. It escalated into an argument with him saying that he had a right to have children with his wife. When I didn't back down, he got frustrated and took a swing at me, which didn't connect properly. I didn't hesitate in punching him back in his face. He fell backwards and started howling in pain. I wanted to do that since this whole ordeal started, and it was satisfying. I think him hitting me was my sister's wake-up call. He called the cops and told them that I assaulted him. Fortunately, I make sure to record everything whenever I visit their home. I use my Apple Watch for this, and it's a great tool for stealthy audio recording. I called my boss and told her about what happened, and she promised to send a lawyer just in case. When the cops arrived, my sister took my side, which surprised her husband. With me being a woman and with a recording, the cops also took my side. The lawyer arrived after that, and I told her husband that I was taking my sister with me. He tried to protest, but the lawyer warned him that I would press charges if he stopped my sister from leaving. He reluctantly let her go, and she has been staying with me for the last week. My parents were furious when they found out that my sister left her husband. They did not seem to care that he hit me, probably because I stopped talking to them. I am still talking to my sister about what she wants to do, and will probably start divorce proceedings in a few days. Her husband and my parents have been trying to call and get her to come back, but I've made sure that she doesn't talk to them without me present. Throughout the whole thing, my boss has been super helpful and has been giving my sister advice about what she could do next. I know that I'm super lucky that my sister managed to wake up so soon and that I've had support from people like my boss. Throughout the whole of last year, I was worried about how my sister was going to end up, but I'm elated now. Now on to the next story. Story 4. I, 45 male, told my first biological offspring, 25 male, that I have 2 sons, and he's not either of them. Now my sister, 37 female, is begging me to talk to him. When I, 45 male, was 21, I got my girlfriend at the time pregnant. I was extremely scared, but I manned up and married her. It was hard, but we made it work for 8 years until I caught her cheating. Subsequently, I ended the marriage and initiated co-parenting with my son. At the time, he was my top priority. Having experienced my own father's absence, I made a personal vow to be the best father possible. I committed to having my son every weekend, consistently being punctual and well-prepared. Despite juggling a full-time job and attending school, I made sure he always had my full attention when he was with me. He was my best friend and my son. Even though money was tight, we had some amazing adventures. He loved spending time with my family and even had friends in my neighborhood. I thought we were doing well until he was around 11. At that point, he started to not want to visit me. His mother had entered a new relationship with a financially well-off boyfriend, and I was aware that they were going on frequent trips and engaging in enjoyable activities on weekends. Initially, I didn't raise any objections, but after about 6 months into their relationship, my son's visits to me dwindled to perhaps 1 weekend a month. By the 9-month mark, he ceased coming altogether. After 3 months of calling, chasing, and begging, I was getting nowhere. My family came together and hired a lawyer to sue my ex for parental alienation. I lost and was ordered to pay more child support. As I was leaving the courtroom, my ex's lawyer approached me and offered to cancel the child support if I gave up my paternal rights. I, Vlad, refused until the lawyers said this was both my ex-wife's and my then-son's wishes. So, I asked to speak to my son alone, and they agreed as long as both lawyers were in the room. I spoke to my son and asked him if he really wanted me to give up my rights, and he said, yeah. I explained that it would mean I won't be his dad, that he couldn't come visit me or my family anymore. He looked me squarely in the eyes, as if casually asking for the time, and replied, yeah. It felt like a blow, and I sought clarification, asking him if he truly understood what he was saying. Without hesitation, he affirmed that he wanted to be his mom's boyfriend's son. That day, I signed the necessary papers. From that moment until 2 days ago, he never uttered a word or reached out to me or any member of my family. It literally almost killed me. I started to drink and stay drunk for weeks. Finally, one day, I drank until I passed out and aspirated my own vomit. I would be dead now except the mailman dropped a package addressed to me to my neighbor's house, and she saw me convulsing through my window and called 911. I spent 2 weeks in a hospital with aspiration pneumonia. Following that difficult period, I relocated to my hometown, secured a new job, dedicated time to fitness, and underwent 4 years of intensive psychotherapy. Eventually, I reached a point where I could release the past and move forward with my life. Roughly 6 years after my relocation, I met my current wife, who had an 11-year-old son. Initially reserved with him, I couldn't resist falling in love with the incredible young boy he was and still is. The day he turned 18, he asked me to adopt him. His father left him when he was 5, never to be seen or heard of again. It was the proudest day of my life. He and his mother turned my life around and gave me a reason for living. Now, not only do I have a wonderful adopted son, 19, who is currently serving in the Marines, but I also have his son, 4-year-old, and daughter, 18, female. My career has flourished, and I am thriving with success for myself and my family. I've become a comeback story, transforming from a man seemingly unloved to a successful father of 3, blessed with a beautiful wife and family. I not only survived but thrived. Then, about 3 weeks ago, I received a call at my office. It was my ex's in-law who informed me that my ex had passed away. I simply said, okay, and hung up. It's been 14 years since I've had any contact with any of those people, and I have no desire to know anything about them. Now, to force my family and I were getting ready to go to a picnic when there was a knock on the door. I recognized him through the front glass. It was my first biological offspring. I opened the door, and he said, hello, Opie. I'm your son. Without an ounce of hesitation, I said, no, you're not. I have 2 sons, and you're not either one of them. Now, please leave my property. He just stood there, kind of dumbfounded, as I shut the door. After a moment, he left and then put out a text to my family letting them know that he was lurking around. I have no desire to engage with them, and I will sever ties with anyone who attempts to establish contact. It's been 14 years, and I don't feel any obligation towards him or his family. I had to endure listening to my mother cry for him on her deathbed because of that child. I found myself in a hospital bed with a breathing machine keeping me alive, yearning for it to shut off and release me from the pain associated with that child. I learned in therapy that he had a right to make his own choices, but that I also have the right to make mine. My choice was to move on without him as part of my family, as he wanted. He has no right to come back into my life and disturb me or my family. Now, my entire family agrees with me. Even my wife and my in-laws share the belief that nothing positive can emerge from reopening this chapter. He is now 25 years old. If there was any malicious scheme orchestrated by his mother and her boyfriend, he had 8 years to reach out to me. It seems suspicious that now, with his mother no longer in the picture, I'm suddenly in the spotlight. I am indifferent. Even if he were to inherit a doll, $200, he made a call, and if he had seen the look in his eyes when he said, "Yeah, so you would have known, like I did, that he didn't give a damn about me." So, I had to stop giving a damn about him to survive. He doesn't have the right to ambush me on my front porch and act like he's anything to me now. Well, come to find out, my sister is the one who has been giving him and my sister-in-law my contact info. My sister, who I love dearly, is inconsolable that I won't give him a chance. Apparently, he called her after he came to my house and broke down. I told her to stop right there. I don't care. But now she's pleading with me, for the sake of our mother, to meet with her son. So, I ask you, is there anything positive that can result from a meeting with this son at this point? Now, for the primary advice, he was only 12. Just because he desired it doesn't mean you had to grant his wishes at that age. He couldn't possibly comprehend the long-term consequences of that decision. You had a choice to pay the child support and demand a custody agreement be upheld and enforced. No, I did not. The court had literally just told me that because my son was 12, I could not enforce or demand visitation time. Literally, I was ordered to pay more child support for a child that I had no right to see. Your sister doesn't sound very emotionally bright and has a lot of unwelcome opinions. You need to be very firm with her that her meddling will have consequences if pursued. As someone who has had a parent leave their family, I do agree that blood is thicker than water. Literally, everything is thicker than water. The old saying isn't worth the ink it was written with. The only slack I will give my sister is that she was just 12 when he was born, and for 8 years my ex and I were together. During the time of the lawsuit, my sister was in college and only heard stories about what was happening. She played a role like a second mother to him. She deeply cared for that boy, and my mother did too. My mother wept on her deathbed, longing to see him one last time. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. My only curiosity with that says is what is playing out. I'll be honest, after I returned 18, I had some hope in my heart that he might try to contact me. But that was short-lived. That was 8 years ago. So, I now tell her, "Sister, if you want to have your own relationship with a guy, that's your prerogative, as long as you leave me out of it." She has shared her viewpoint and offered her suggestions, and now it's time for her to let it go unless she wants to experience some time without hearing from you. If you choose to listen to him, it will be based on your conditions and at your own pace. Forcing you into that conversation while you are still suspicious and upset won't lead to a positive outcome she desires. And employing the memory of your late mother to induce guilt is not acceptable on any level. As for whether you should hear him out, I do think it makes a difference that he was only 11 when this all went down. His mom dying might have prompted some reflection on things he couldn't really bring himself to question or push back on when she was alive, and maybe his remorse is genuine. But it is equally possible he's just not happy with what she left him in a will. If you're comfortable with leaving things as they are, I don't believe anyone else has the right to dictate otherwise. It's not surprising that an 11 to 12-year-old was influenced by his mother and stepfather, especially if they were providing him with PlayStations. It's heartbreaking, but not unexpected. Most 12-year-olds can be easily swayed, particularly those who have experienced the challenges of a divorce. So, if Opie wanted to be more open-minded, and if during the last 8 years, something from mom or stepdad was preventing his contact or poisoned his ear, he could hear him out. But Opie took the rejection so hard at the time. I can see how he just can't go there again. There was a story in and finished off on Best of Reddit updates about a woman who found out her husband was cheating and assumed her ex-husband was alienating the person against her when he tried to come back into her life. She found out not only did he know about the cheating, the son blackmailed the father and got him whatever he wanted. Years of trying to establish a relationship with her son only to find out that he really is a piece of trash. He did not apologize for anything. He admitted everything to her and told her the reason why he did that was because she didn't have anything to offer and tried to be entitled to her money because the father didn't have any more money to offer. He was likely seeking financial assistance for his college education. I doubt it's the same situation as everyone mentioned in the post. Op should proceed on his own terms and establish clear boundaries. People vary in the number of chances they get, with some receiving multiple opportunities and others only having one chance that they may squander. While it might seem like Op is taking it out on him before deciding anything, Op should provide a summary of what occurred after he initially spoke. Yeah, so, and what he's been through. Also, Op should inform him to be very careful with what he has next because it might be their last conversation. That story was heartbreaking. I felt so bad for that woman. Her son was a legitimate bath he did and said that when he was a child, but has been an adult for 8 years now and only made contact after his mother died. Regardless of whether he had any fault in this, there was a lot of harm done to you. It's not negligible to what you were put through by him and his mother, and with him growing up with her as a role model, I'd be suspicious too. He's old enough to know that there are some things that can't be undone and a whole lot of damage that, I'm sorry, doesn't cure, especially considering he didn't express any remorse. You're not obligated to expose yourself to potential harm again, especially now that you have to consider the well-being of your wife and 3 children in addition to your own. There's a Chinese saying that emphasizes the inability of medicine to cure regret. This situation appears to fall into that category. Why take the risk of experiencing regret by allowing this grown man back into your life after all the hardship he put you through? Best to do what Opie has done and to stand firm. Now on to the next story. Story 5. Am I really in a hole for not letting my father abandon me? To preface this, I'll give the baseline of my relationship with my father. He constantly reminded me of the fact that I was an accident during a pre-divorce hip fail dress. He literally sold me off to my abusive mother when they divorced to try and get a lower alimony payment. He abandoned me despite having partial custody and was consistently absent even after I moved in with him at the age of 13. I left before graduating at the age of 17, and he left me in the care of my troubled, drug-addicted stepbrother without any support. I'll elaborate on the present problem after recounting the experience of living with him and his subsequent abandonment. I moved in with my sister and brother-in-law. They had a kid along with my brother-in-law's son from a previous marriage, and everything was fine for a few years until my sister decided she wanted to get pregnant after agreeing with my brother-in-law to never have kids again. She wanted a point of poking holes in condoms and going off her birth control to try and force him into another pregnancy, which he was dead set against due to previous trauma and failed pregnancies. Combining various significant challenges and crossing boundaries that didn't honor their relationship ultimately led to its demise, and they parted ways. While my connection with my father was strained, it still endured. That changed when I discovered that my sister had fabricated allegations of abuse against my brother-in-law, seeking to strip him of all custody rights. Having been a part of their lives for most of the time their child was growing up, I was always actively involved in their relationship, and I knew this was a lie. After some questioning, I found out my father was a supporter in all of this and was fighting for my brother-in-law to never see his son again. I snapped after sitting in on their mediation call, and I heard my brother-in-law cry like I'd never heard him before. It was a type of agony you'd only hear from a good man about to lose his child when he had done nothing wrong. I went on a warpath to fight for him and, in doing so, called my father and ripped him 6 ways from Sunday. When I called him, I told him flat out, "Make sure you choose your words carefully because this may be the last time you and I ever speak." He proceeded to make a long list of excuses, dodging every question before I could even finish asking, moreover, insisting that I should stay out of the dispute between my sister and brother-in-law, claiming it's their fight. Completely disregards the impact on their son, whose experiences remain unknown to you. Despite my anger and disbelief, he abruptly mentions he has to work and ends the conversation. It's been 3 years, and that marked the final exchange between us. The next day, he comes by with something for my nephew and mentions to my brother-in-law that he's concerned. No skin off my nose. He was a crappy failure of a father, and I'll be fine without him. Almost immediately, he changes his mind. He's always been a coward with no spine. His dad's texting and calling me to try and guilt me into forgiving him. Nevertheless, I refrain from engaging in a response. Being a deeply religious person, he seems more concerned about divine judgment than my own well-being. Regardless of his words, I stand firm in my decision. 3 years have passed, and my life has undergone a complete transformation, distancing me from all of them. I now lead a content and fulfilled life surrounded by individuals who genuinely love and care for me. Sometimes, I can't help but think about it though. Did I do the right thing? What happened with your brother-in-law and C? I was as involved with a custody case as I could be. I spoke out about how my brother-in-law was a good father, being framed in a bad light, and that he deserves to see his son. He secured partial custody, though I believe it falls short of what he deserved. Nonetheless, it's a preferable outcome compared to the alternative. I appreciate you summarizing the situation. I'm relieved that things resolved positively. As the children grow older, their preferences regarding custody will carry more weight, and it's likely that your sister's kids may choose to spend more time with their father. I empathize with your experience. Indeed, my father's shortcomings as a parent during my childhood, a crucial time for proper parenting, would have been reason enough to sever ties. The additional challenges only serve as further confirmation. It sounds like you can relate, having a similar situation with your mother. Such circumstances can be incredibly difficult, and I hope you found the support and strength needed to navigate them. I haven't spoken to her for 5 years. My life is much better for it. You're not at all. You owe your father absolutely nothing. Not you. You did yourself a huge favor by dropping him from your life. My maternal grandfather and grandmother have done far less awful things to my mother, but a B nonetheless, and her remaining in contact with them and failing to set boundaries out of guilt and AF. There are times when she is depressed for days after having a phone call with them. I have tried explaining time and time again, you do not owe anyone a relationship at the expense of your own mental health and happiness. Take care of yourself. Now on to the next story. Story 6. Turned my grandparents' property into a successful wedding venue. My sis booked it without telling me, and now our mom is harassing me for not canceling another couple's wedding. I am 29. My sister Mel is 25. I also have a younger sister, Kayla, 18. When I was just 12 years old, my mother decided to send me away from home to live with her parents. They lived a couple of states away, about 8 hours. She claimed they needed my help around their property, but I believe she simply didn't want to deal with a growing teenage boy. I'll admit maybe I wasn't the easiest to deal with. I got in a lot of trouble, but I blame it on my curiosity and I was bored. Luckily, my grandparents had an incredible estate in the mountains, featuring breathtaking views and wonderful animals such as horses, goats, a couple of cows, and other critters. They happened to be quite wealthy as well. Some context and a long-winded background story. Being with them literally changed my life. There was so much to do around there, not just on the property, but I was able to ride my dirt bike around. There was fishing, hiking, and swimming. I met a lot of cool people who shared the same interests as me. And as much as I resented my mom for sending me away and not really having anything to do with me much after, I look back now and thank her for that because I wouldn't be who I am today if I had stayed. Not only that, but I will say that she never had a great relationship with her own parents because she found them to be too strict. But their firmness gave me a sense of order and purpose that I was lacking, and they weren't cold people. I just like to think that she actually became jealous of the way that I was treated by them because I think it was a lot different than her experience for a number of reasons, but I think the times were different too. They were really working to get the farm to a good place financially, and I think that happened for them after my mom was long gone and moved out of their home. But I think my mom saw how I was actually flourishing with them and really hated that and in turn hated me. But yeah, we just didn't have a relationship with each other much after I left. I mean, I never went back there, not even for holidays, so that says it all. My grandparents were such loving people, and they were always encouraging me to just be me and learn and work hard. They taught me valuable life lessons that I've carried with me to this day. Even though they had money, I never looked at them as people who had money. They didn't flaunt it. They didn't push it in people's faces. They were so hardworking and generous. They worked for everything they ever had, and they were always giving what they could to people who didn't have much. Folks were always coming over and sitting at our kitchen table with us for lunches and dinners. Sundays was a special day for that. Anyways, I remember my mom always saying that she never really liked them because they were really strict with her and didn't let her do anything. So the minute she turned 18, she moved away to the city where she met my dad, and then she followed my dad a couple of states away where they currently reside. He had taken advantage of this new job opportunity, and they got married and started a family. My parents ended up getting divorced shortly after I went to live with my grandparents. My grandparents said she used to sneak out of the house a lot and tried to get away with sneaking her boyfriend into the house, and they just wouldn't allow that. And I get that. That's sort of a rule they gave me while I lived with them too. No hanky-panky under their roof. I get it, but the older I got, the more I realized my mom was just a real wild one. So I guess the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. And I think my grandparents tried to make up for that by how they treated me. I guess I never received the treatment that she got when she was with them, but whatever it is, they were more parents to me than my own parents. Unfortunately, they both passed away 4 years ago from COVID. They left me with the property, believing that I would appreciate and take care of it more than my mother and sisters, who received money and other assets valued higher than the property. In the 4 years since, I have transformed part of the property into a popular wedding venue and another part of the property into a pretty swell bed and breakfast. I've also made it possible to do your own pumpkin patch picking, and I've set up a little corn maze that people like to take part in the fall. My grandparents really set me up for life, and I'm so grateful for them. I really tried my best in the last 4 years to make this place enjoyable for everyone. I still try to do Sunday brunch here as well for anyone who wants to pop in. I've really worked to keep the tradition alive, and because of all of that, this property really does give back to me in so many ways. I feel very fortunate. The wedding venue is a popular spot and is typically booked out for about 8 months of the year. When my sister Mel got engaged a while ago, she immediately expressed her desire to have her wedding at our property. I eagerly agreed but reminded her to let me know the date as soon as possible so I could ensure its availability on the calendar. So a bit of context with my sisters. We maintained a pretty good relationship growing up. They'd come to spend about a month or 2 with me and our grandparents every year. Like I said, I never went back home, but we had so much fun together. We didn't ever talk about our mom. We just kind of existed together and it was great. It was nice to have them around. But as we got older, Mel stopped wanting to come, and Kayla didn't want to come if Mel wasn't coming. But we still tried to talk on the phone and text and video chat when we could. Anyways, I never got a date from Mel, which was frustrating. I started getting anxious and followed up several times. I kept asking her to the point where I was even annoying myself, and she would brush me off. She'd be like, "Oh, I'll ask George," her fiancé. Well, 3 weeks ago, I get the wedding invitation in the mail. The invitation says the name of my property and the address along with the date and time that she never confirmed with me. The date is August of this year. My heart drops. June to August are the busiest months, and I already know they're booked up. I quickly phoned her to let her know that the date she requested has already been booked, and I'm sorry, but I'm unable to make room for her then. I ask why she didn't tell me sooner. She apologizes and tells me that she's just had so much on her mind and she feels stretched thin. And I say, "Mel, I told you that you had to tell me right away because this place gets booked up 8 months in advance." She starts crying and she says, "I need to work my magic and make this happen because I thought I told you the date. I've put all of the deposits on the caterer." She's not using our caterer, by the way. She's using an outside caterer. She's got the photographer and whatever else. She said she sent out the invites to over 200 people already. I said, "Mel, the weekend you want is already booked, and they've already put their deposits down. They left us a deposit 9 months ago, in fact. I can't just cancel their wedding when they were responsible enough to get their venue sorted out." Well, she calls me selfish and she said I'm ruining her whole wedding and there must be something I can do. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my emotions as Mel's accusations pierced through me. I never wanted to disappoint her, but I couldn't ignore the commitments I had made to other couples who trusted me with their special day. "Mel, I'm truly sorry that this has happened, but I can't just cancel on another couple to accommodate your wedding." Mel's sobs echoed through the phone, and her words came out in between what sounded like hiccups. "But this is my dream wedding, and everything is falling apart now because of you." And I said, "Because of me? You didn't send me the date when I repeatedly followed up with you. This is on you." She starts sobbing and she tells me that grandma and grandpa would be so mad at you. Taking a moment to collect my thoughts, I spoke firmly yet calmly into the phone. Mel, I understand that this is important to you, but you need to understand that I have obligations to fulfill as well. I'm running a business here, Mel. I can't just disregard the commitments I've made to others who have entrusted me with their special day. I told her that she needs to figure something else out, and I end the call. Well, within the hour, I get an unknown number calling my phone. I pick up. It's my mom. She tells me that I'm being completely disrespectful to my sister, and that I'm just jealous and I'm trying to ruin her day by making up excuses. She said if I don't book my venue for my sister that she's going to get her and her friends to blast the venue socials and give me bad ratings. She said I'm just being an entitled brat and trying to play God. I literally laughed at her, and I told her to go ahead. I said, how is it that other people can manage to book in advance and get a confirmation from a venue, and yet my sister can't do the same thing? Wouldn't that make her the entitled brat, thinking that I was just going to drop everything and cancel someone else's wedding for her? I said she's had a whole year to give me the date. I followed up with her, and I have a paper trail of every single conversation we've had, chains of emails, and not one says a date or a time. I said the only confirmation I receive of a date and time is the invitation I just got in the mail. My mom said that I need to put whatever issue I have with her and whatever resentment and bad blood I'm carrying from childhood and stop trying to take it out on my sister. And I said, whoa, how does that have anything to do with Mel? And she said, you tell me. You're the one ruining this for everybody. And then I said, I don't think you know how a business runs. Clearly, I can't explain this to you any further, and you don't even want to hear what I have to say. You haven't contacted me in years, and the first time you do is because my sister up and thinks she can get whatever she asks for from a reputable business. Sorry, but find somewhere else. Other family members, her partner's family, and some of her friends have all been attacking me. They are calling, texting, and leaving negative reviews for my business, just like my mom said. I've turned comments off of my posts. I have asked them to stop, but they continue to harass me. I tried to tell them my side of my story with no avail. I even contacted my sister Mel again and told her that all she had to do was let me know the date of her event so I could make arrangements. She started yelling at me, claiming that I was ruining her day. Her fiancé even got involved and started cussing me out and telling me that I've ruined everything. Mel said the property belongs to our family. She had already sent out the invitations and couldn't back out now. She wanted me to cancel on the other couple who have been booked for a year now. She said she's just going to get the guests to show up anyways, and everything is going to go as planned on her end. I decided to only communicate through business channels like our recorded phone line and emails. If anybody called in to talk about the matter, I told them to transfer the phone to me to deal with because they were starting to harass and verbally assault my staff. I tried to compromise and suggested 3 alternative dates around the same time, but they were during the week and significantly less expensive, but that wasn't good enough for anyone. I said if her and her guests do end up showing up on the same day as the other couple, I'd have no choice but to turn people away after they'd come all that way and to potentially get the police involved. Update. Okay, I'm back with an update. There's been some interesting developments. First of all, eventually, I just said that if I catch any of them or their guests on my property on or around that date, they'll get arrested for trespassing. So then, shortly after I really put my foot down, I get a call from my sister Kayla saying that mom's gone and hasn't told them where she's gone to. She's been gone for 2 days. I'm like, okay. And Kayla's like, yeah, just be careful. She might be heading your way. And I said, she wouldn't have the guts. But turns out she did have the guts. Who rolls up after hours other than my very own mother, who I haven't seen in person since my grandparents passed away. She's in the family van. I guess she must have driven all that way. She pulls right up to my house, gets out, and starts knocking on the door and yelling and saying that she knows I'm in there because the lights are on. So I got to the front door, and without opening it, I'm like, if you don't leave now, I'm going to call the cops because you're trespassing on my property. And she said, you can't call the cops. I grew up here. This is my house. So then she tries to get at the door, and she's literally heaving on the handle, and then she's using her full body weight to try and open the door. I'm like, okay, Well, here we go. I call the cops, and I tell them what's happening. At this point, my cameras are also recording everything too, so yeah, she's essentially breaking down my door when the cops arrive. They arrest her and take her in. Her van gets towed. I call my sister Kayla and tell her what happened, and Kayla starts crying, but she gets it. I said, this isn't her fault, and it's not on her. I said Mom made her own choices, and it's led her to where she is today. The next day, I get a call from Kayla, and she's like, you got to sit down. And I'm like, are you okay? And she's like, oh yeah, but Mom's been lying to everyone. Apparently, my mom had told Mel that she could help out by booking the caterer, the photographer, and putting all of the deposits down for everything else. Mel took this as genuine because she was actually getting pretty overwhelmed with the whole wedding planning thing. I guess Mel is actually pregnant. She hasn't told anyone but Kayla, our mom, and her fiancé. She's been pretty sick, and she actually hasn't been feeling all that well, so I felt pretty bad about that. But anyways, yeah, so Mel was thankful for my mom's help. She gave my mom the cash to do all of this, but I guess my mom gambled the cash away. So when Mel went to contact all of these other vendors to potentially change the date to something that was available here, all of the vendors that my mom was supposed to contact said that nothing had been set in stone yet and no deposits had been made. That's when they started doing some serious digging and discovered that my mom was totally broke, and the bills and utilities hadn't even been paid. Kayla found letters hidden in my mom's room that said the house was in danger of being foreclosed. Well, she had no idea. Nobody had a clue, apparently. Kayla was talking to our dad, and he said he received a few calls from our mom asking if she could borrow some money. He asked what was going on, and she said she just owed some people some money and said she's been having a hard time financially. Not only that, but when our mom received her inheritance, she quit her job, so she didn't even have an income coming in. I called Mel and told her that Kayla told me everything, and that I was really sorry. She started crying and said she was sorry too, and she had no idea. She said Mom was really pushing her to have the wedding at my property because she was saying that I likely would let them get married here as a gift, so it would be free. Apparently, my mom said she'd take care of that, but she's been so sick with this pregnancy that she forgot to tell me the actual date. She legitimately thought she had told me, and I said that I was sorry for speaking to her that way. She said she was sorry too. She said nothing's even booked, so the wedding has been technically postponed to the same time next year. In looking at my books and the calendar, I said that date and time was totally free for next year. I said I'd give her a significant discount on the venue and our caterer. Edit. The house ended up getting foreclosed. My mom actually never returned home. She went to go and stay with some cousin of hers down south. She doesn't speak to me, nothing new or Mel, but she texts Kayla just letting her know she's okay every now and again. Kayla is going to live with Mel while things get sorted. I guess I'm trying to stay out of it, but she's staying with Mel until she goes to college, and she's welcome back in the summers. She also has plans to come stay with me every now and again, and we're thinking everyone can come out here for Thanksgiving this year. Now on to the next story. Story 7. Found out my wife was cheating on me with her sister's husband, so we exposed their affair during a family movie night using a hidden camera video. My name is Jason, and I want to share my story with you. This story is about a time when something really hurtful happened to me. It involves my wife, Elena, and her sister's husband, Mike. They did something that made me very sad and angry. Felt like a big shock, like lightning striking me. My heart was full of pain. I couldn't believe that someone I loved could do this to me. The hurt went deep like a cut that takes a long time to heal. The pain was so strong that it made me want to do something in return, to make them understand how much they hurt me. My feelings were like a fire, pushing me to act. The betrayal I had received from them taught me the worst realities of life. It all started when I decided to step into online dating, which was something that I had previously avoided. As someone who valued face-to-face interactions, I held reservations about the genuineness of these digital platforms. However, the absence of promising connections within my nearby surroundings compelled me to take a leap of faith. As I went through countless profiles, each appearing more ordinary than the previous, I came across Elena's profile. Her profile picture emitted some magic towards me that immediately captured my attention. Her unique passion for skating, a pastime I also held close to my heart, aroused my curiosity even further. With a mixture of careful hopefulness, I made a right swipe, and much to my surprise, our profiles matched. Little did I know that this apparently non-toxic online connection would steer me into a far more complicated and unsettling phase of my life, full of twists and turns that I could have never even imagined. Elena and I began our journey together, and we immediately developed a great, loving bond. This strong connection grew due to our mutual fondness for socializing and outgoing personalities. As a result, our companionship became cozy and familiar. Life seemed great as we got settled just perfectly with each other. However, relationships are often more complex than they appear. Our story took an interesting turn when we welcomed Elena's younger sister, Selena, and her husband, Mike, into our lives. Since we all lived so close to each other, our interactions with them went beyond the usual interactions you might have with relatives. Instead, we became inseparable companions who enjoyed going on double dates and simply hanging out together. We had a really good bond. We hosted each other often, and living so close, we felt a sense of security and acquaintanceship. Mike, in particular, played an important role in my life. He became like a caring and supportive older brother. He became more than just a friend to me. It's amazing how our journey brought Elena and me closer together and extended our circle of family-like connections through Selena and Mike. Our close friendship with Selena and Mike made the unexpected revelation later occurring in our lives even harder to bear. It all started innocently enough with a visit from Mike to our apartment. It happened when one day I came back from the office and saw Mike leaving our apartment. He said he had come to return something that Selena had borrowed. At that moment, I didn't think much of it and didn't suspect anything was wrong. But as days passed, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was just not right. The way Mike had acted during that visit began to play in my mind like a puzzle. His explanation had been vague. Looking back, it seemed like he was hiding something. My mind started connecting the dots, and slowly the truth emerged. After a few more such weird incidents, the trust we had built over time had been shattered in an instant. The bond we shared with Selena and Mike had been a smokescreen hiding the truth. The revelation hit me hard, as if the ground had been pulled from under my feet. The friendship that once felt unbreakable was now broken, and the hurt ran deep. Reflecting on those moments, it became clear that sometimes things are not as they seem. The closeness we feel with others might mask hidden secrets. It's a painful lesson that taught me the importance of truly knowing the people we invite into our lives. This all was revealed when my everyday routine was disturbed one day after receiving a distressed call from Selena. Her voice carried a weight of urgency, and it just caught my attention instantly. It was clear that something of huge significance had happened. She was crying a lot and just asking to meet in person to talk. Her voice was trembling, which showed the gravity of the situation. Without hesitation, I made up my mind to respond to her call for help. Even though I was quite busy that day and I had no time, I could not dismiss Selena in such a condition. In this scenario, it was clear that Selena needed my help, and she needed it now. However, her request for secrecy added a layer of complexity to the situation. She asked me not to call Mike or Elena, which was strange to me. I was suspicious and worried, but I excused myself from my work on my way to Selena's place. I thought of every aspect that could have occurred for her to call me so urgently, but upon getting to know the reality, I realized my mind could never even work up to that extent. I had no idea that my life was going to fall apart that day. A heavy feeling filled the air as I stepped into Selena's house. Selena looked really sad, her hair all messy and her cheeks wet from tears. Her condition pointed out a very miserable story ahead. I asked her what had happened and why she was crying so much. She remained silent, but I did not stop questioning. By that point, I was extremely concerned. Without saying a word, she took me to her baby's room. I thought maybe it was something concerning the little baby girl, though I was surprised that she would have called me for such an issue. There, she started a video. The video was about to change everything, and I had no idea at first. I was completely puzzled by what she was attempting to show me. However, my confusion quickly turned into shock and astonishment as I saw Elena and Mike stepping into the baby's room and having sex with each other. My jaw dropped open, and I found myself utterly incapable of forming any reasonable words. My gaze was locked on the intimate scene on the screen, unable to comprehend what my eyes had seen. It was a thing I never could have thought of. The love I shared with Elena was not less enough for her to be in intimate bonds with some other men, and that to her brother-in-law. A few seconds later, my gaze shifted to Selena, who met my stunned expression with a knowing look. In the silence that came after, Selena's sad eyes met mine. Her face looked like she was feeling a lot of different things just like I was. She whispered, "You're absolutely right." That little sentence held so much meaning. It showed how deeply we both felt hurt by the people we trusted. We were going through the exact same pain. I needed to sit down because everything felt heavy and confusing, and it was too much for me to take in. The truth fell like a huge rock on me. It was hard to understand that the people I loved and trusted the most had done something so hurtful to me. It was like a big shock that I didn't know how to deal with. Selena and I were both really upset because our partners did something that hurt us a lot. We decided to talk to them about it together because we both felt the same way, but we did not want to do it so simply. We had to now plan an act of revenge for the betrayal we had received from our beloved partners. So we planned a specific day for this. Selena thought of gathering all of us at her house a day or two later. The four of us were there at Selena's place. It felt kind of tense and uncomfortable because nobody was saying anything, but you could feel that something was wrong. She wanted us to watch a movie together, like a fun thing to do, but then something changed. Selena took the CD and put it inside the CD player. Then the unexpected happened. Instead of a regular movie, a video started playing. This video was the same one that Selena had shown me. It showed Elena and Mike in a situation that wasn't right, and they had no idea they were being recorded. When the video started playing, a wave of emotion swept through the room. Elena's and Mike's faces turned various shades of reddish, revealing the depth of their guilt and shame. The atmosphere in the room changed. They had not expected it in their wildest dreams that this was all caught on a video, and they were caught red-handed. Overwhelmed by a rush of emotions, I slowly stood up from my seat. With each step I took, I walked towards Elena, my heart burdened by an unfamiliar mix of determination and sadness. When I spoke, my voice carried a tone that was new to my ears, a blend of absolute certainty and profound sorrow. I told her something that was incredibly difficult to express but needed to be shared. Elena had ruined our marriage beyond repair. She had not thought of me even once before engaging with someone else. Moreover, she had not cared about her own sister. She had been a selfish and horrible wife and sister. It was clear that I had to detach myself from Elena completely. She had done enough, and I knew deep down that it would take me a lot of time to heal. As I stepped out of Selena's home, I was crying and hurting too. My wife had betrayed me and had been unfaithful to me. I had loved her so dearly. I had never engaged in any unfaithful act in my entire marriage because I respected her so much. I could not imagine separating from the person I loved the most, but it needed to be done. I called my lawyer to file for divorce and proceed legally. As the word got out about what Elena and Mike had done, it created a big shock. People in our group of friends felt surprised too. The stuff they did was horrible, and even friends who used to really like them started saying bad things about them. You know, the close bonds we all had in our families, which used to make us feel really strong and close, now felt different because of the not-so-good things they did. Selena turned out to be even stronger than I was, which was admirable. She had hired a lawyer, and she had fought for the complete custody of her daughter. She won the case and got custody. Mike's acts had made it very easy for her. Elena's infidelity in our marriage favored me greatly during our divorce. The journey toward healing was far from a simple, straightforward path. I had known that I would have to go through a lot of pain to ultimately feel better. I had to go through therapy to cope up with the grief that I was going through. It was not easy at all, but I was just lucky to have my friends and family by my side. They made sure to pull me out of my depressing phases whenever they overwhelmed me. It was my mom who actually pushed me towards this option of taking mental help, or I would have never even considered it. When I look back, I realized that my urge for revenge wasn't only about making those who harmed me feel the same pain. It transformed into a journey of discovering who I am, finding the strength to keep going, and starting fresh. The scars from being betrayed might stay with me, but they show me how much inner power we have to conquer even the most complicated challenges in life. After my divorce, I assumed I would stay in that pain forever, but that turned out to be wrong. With time and effort, it is possible to overcome every pain that is thrown your way. I never talked to Elena again, even though she tried to reach out to me a lot, but I am glad I did not respond. I am very happy with where I am in my life today, and I don't regret anything. Now on to the next story. Story 8. Surviving infidelity. Wife of 5 years cheated, and now I feel absolutely nothing for her. Nothing. And that scares me. My 34-year-old wife, Wendy, and I met through friends 7 years ago. We dated for 2 years and have been married for 5 years. Just after I finished law school, I worked my tail off as an associate at my firm, putting in 60 hours a week for the first 2 years of our marriage. That effort paid off and I'm doing well professionally. Wendy was a teacher at a private school, but as soon as we got married, she quit so she could go back to school for her master's in education and is currently in an educational doctoral program while working part-time. This was a bit of a financial strain since I wanted to pay off my student loans as quickly as possible, but we managed. My wife had an old laptop that she was using when we started dating. I found it in a box in a closet. She said it crashed and wouldn't work any longer. I plugged it in, tried to turn it on. Nothing. When we met, Wendy took pictures of everything, primarily selfies of her with others, not knowing that she must have had some pictures of us from that time. I yanked the hard drive and looked at it. Seemed okay. The problem must have been somewhere else. Wanting to surprise her with pictures of when we first started dating, I waited until she left to go visit her sister before I plugged it into a USB cable connected to my PC. There were pictures there, plenty of pictures. Some were of us on dates, laughing, smiling. They brought back some good memories, but there were also others of her with different people. One person in particular, I remembered his name was Bob, and Wendy had dated him before me. There were lots of pictures of her and Bob. I wanted to grab only our pictures, so I thought the easiest way would be to organize them by date, figuring the latest pictures would be of only us. But when I clipped them by date, a lot of her pictures with Bob were jumbled up with pictures of us. I began to open the pictures one by one and noticed that in a few of her pictures with Bob, where they were cuddling and kissing, she was wearing a necklace, an SL locket that I had given her as a birthday present in the second year we were dating. I had to borrow the money from my brother to buy it. I looked at the dates on the pictures and a pattern emerged. On the days and weekends when school required my undivided attention, the times when she went to her mother's house or her sister's house to give me peace and quiet, she was meeting up with Bob behind my back. I was furious. Felt like fire ants were chewing on my brain, my heart in my guts. I wanted to punch through the walls, but then something snapped, and I went numb. I began to see and think in very cold, analytical terms. I copied all of her pics, all of them, not just those I'd seen, to a flash drive. I packed a bag, grabbed some suits, took the thumb drive, and went to stay with my brother across town. I left her laptop hard drive plugged into my PC with a picture of her kissing Bob on their monitor. The only note I left behind was a sticky note with an arrow on it pointing to the necklace, the SL locket. Wendy tried to call me from her mother's house, if that's where she really was, but I didn't answer. It wasn't until a few hours later, after she presumably got back to her apartment and saw the picture on the monitor, that she blew up my phone with voicemails and texts. I ignored them all. I've already met with another associate who works in the family law department about separation and divorce. We have no children or real property since a lot of our money went to paying off my loans and for her tuition. My firm has circled the wagons around me, so her calls go to voicemail. She's not allowed onto the property. Security already turned her away. Wendy tracked me down at my brother's house, but he made it clear to her on the phone that if she tries to come over, he'll set his overmans on her. He told me she was screaming, sobbing, and begging on the phone. It didn't make me sad or happy or anything. I felt nothing. My marriage is over. I've accepted that, but it's been 2 days and I still feel nothing. No pain, no anger, nothing. How is it possible that I have no more feelings for her, no desire to ever see her again, no desire to reconcile? Now that I'm alone with my thoughts, feeling there's nothing for her scares me. Is this going to last? Am I still in shock? Am I permanently broken? The upside is that I've never seen clearer solutions in my cases now. For the top advice before reading the first update, I'm sorry, man, this happened to you. A good thing is that you found out before any children were involved. I am not going to lie, man. I would do the same thing and never look back, though I think eventually you will meet with her and her sob story. I was lonely, it was nothing. I realized I love only you, etc. A person capable of hurting you that way is worth not another second of your life. As for feeling nothing, it's the shock of finding out that the person you loved never existed. It's a self-defense mechanism that unfortunately will wear off, and the pain will come. Shield yourself with loved ones to get through it. Mourn her, them, like she died and move on to someone worthy. I was lonely. It was nothing. To me, this is even worse. To cheat on your partner and break their heart over a supposedly meaningless fling would hurt me more than if my significant other fell in love with someone else, because sometimes feelings catch you by surprise, and that euphoria is hard to resist. Disclaimer: cheating is bad no matter what. I'm not excusing it in any way. The opposite of love isn't hate. It's indifference. Dad is a fellow lawyer. I understand how hard the work-life balance can be. At least you should be able to make a clean break and move on. The lack of hate or anger isn't necessarily a bad sign for you or your future relationships, just your current marriage. All the best. The opposite of love isn't hate. It's indifference. The truth. Just stop caring about them. Hate shows that you have them on your mind, but indifference makes their existence blur away. It's only been 2 days. Maybe you are still in shock. Best advice at this point would be individual counseling. Good luck. But also having experienced something similar myself. A lot of our ideals about who our partner is as a person shapes our feelings for them. When you find out something that completely shatters that ideal, it's like the person you love stops existing, never existed, and the person left in front of you is a total stranger. It's been 6 years since my 9-year relationship ended, and I still have not cried over it. There was a small window where I missed them about 8 months out, but it was only because dating was an emotional pain in the neck, and I missed the stability, and the distance started to rebuild some of those false ideals. Luckily, I did not entertain that rabbit hole, and my life is so much happier than I ever was before with that partner. Now for the first update. First, let me thank everyone for your replies. I'm overwhelmed by the positive responses and want to thank everyone who experienced the same. It helps to know that it's a normal response. I'll look into individual counseling in the near future. The associate at my firm handling my case, let's call her Gail, reviewed the other pictures on the flash drive and found quite a few where Wendy is cuddling, kissing Bob, and the engagement ring I gave her is easily discernible. When I was told this, I didn't feel any pain or anger, only elation. I smiled oddly enough. I asked Gail why this awful news made me happy. She said that it's because it vindicates every action I've taken since I left. I've been no contact with Wendy, and all communications have been through Gail, except for her family and friends who mistakenly think my brother and his wife will be as sympathetic. They're not. Gail's already prepared a separation agreement and scheduled a meeting with Wendy on Thursday afternoon. Gail made it clear to Wendy that if she isn't represented by counsel, then I won't be attending. A word about Gail. I can't post her firm nickname, but let's just say if you think Perviber, you get the right idea. I'm glad she's on my side. We'll be filing the petition for divorce shortly. Gail believes any spousal support will be minimal, and then quickly, as she said, I'll likely get stuck paying the rent for the next 5 months until our lease ends and Wendy completes the last of her doctoral courses. The only significant asset we have is the account with our savings for a down payment on a house, but it's a dual signature account with no ATM access. Thank you, long-forgotten bank guy, for suggesting that as an extra security measure against fraud. My sister-in-law went over to my apartment when Wendy was supposed to be at her part-time job to grab more of my clothes and personal items. She ended up listening to Wendy for a couple of hours. The Redditor who said Wendy would straight up lie about pretty much everything nailed it. The whole time sister-in-law was packing up my stuff, Wendy was telling one easily provable lie after another, getting nowhere. Wendy asked sister-in-law, "Isn't there a guy in your background that just gets inside your head, and you can't say no?" So I guess that's my answer to why she cheated. Bob is a Jedi and Wendy is weak-minded. By the way, sister-in-law did answer her question. Yes, I married him. Spending time with my brother's family has kept me from feeling isolated. My nephews are crushing me in video games, and I'm enjoying every second of it. Work's going great. The partner who oversees my department stopped by to tell me that he's really proud of how I haven't let this personal issue negatively affect my work. Well, that's it for now. Thank you to everyone that replied with supportive posts. I can't explain how much it helps to know I'm not the only one to go through something like this or the apathy I feel toward my soon-to-be ex. Now for some top comments before reading the final update. Sister-in-law's answer crushed it. You owe her big time. Congrats, Mann. Glad your firm stood by you. Excellent blindsided, regrouped plan of action. Pulled the ripcord and safe landing. Besides your career, go do what you always wanted to do. Learn to fly, sailing lessons, sailplane lessons, scuba, kiteboarding, race car driving lessons. You will meet new and interesting people while learning and having fun. Congratulations on achieving empathy toward your wayward wife. That is the state of being to aim for when ditching a cheater. Some of us have struggled for years to achieve the zen of, may it appear that you were the anti-manipulation Jedi Master. Great job and good riddance to her. And now for the second and final update. Wendy found a lawyer, Todd. Gail and I met with him on neutral ground at another firm. We all had to wear masks due to COVID, which made it look like we were there to rob the place or something. It was the first time I'd seen Wendy since she left to go to her sister's mother's house. Wendy looked like hell. Bloodshot eyes, dark bags underneath, tear-streaked makeup. The skin on her neck was covered in hives. I looked at her and felt nothing. More on that later. The second she saw me, Wendy blurted out that she was sorry for everything, that she loved me, that she couldn't live without me, that this was all a mistake, all the standard garbage. She tried to hug me, but Gail inserted herself between us and told Todd to remind Wendy that she is not to speak directly to me or Gail, that she has to talk to Todd, who will talk to Gail, who will talk to me. Gail had told me to say nothing and keep a blank expression on my face. I thought this would be hard since I've been worrying about if my initial anger would return. But it didn't. I was still numb, kind of in a daze like an out-of-body experience. Todd asked about reconciliation. Gail made it clear that we were there to review the separation agreement. Nothing else. Wendy yelled at me that we've been married for 5 years, and I shouldn't throw it all away over a mistake. Gail reminded Todd that Wendy was not to speak to me directly. Todd whispered something to Wendy, and she momentarily got control of herself again. Gail and Todd began discussing the separation agreement that she'd emailed him. Todd said he did but didn't think it was fair to Wendy. He tried to nitpick, likely to show Wendy he was doing something to earn his fee, but Gail knocked down every argument he made until he admitted that it was as fair as the law requires. Wendy said that none of this is fair because this is all a mistake. Gail spread black and white printouts across the table of all the pictures from the flash drive with Wendy kissing, hugging Bob, where her engagement ring is clearly visible. Gail circled the ring at each picture with a big, fat, dark red marker. Alpha move, by the way. Asking Todd each time, does your client believe this was a mistake? How about this? Was this a mistake? No. What about this one? Wendy collapsed back into her chair to ugly cry. Gail and Todd began discussing timelines for delivery of a signed settlement agreement and other matters going forward. I guess my silent indifference finally got to Wendy because, completely unprompted, she screamed out that she never cheated during the marriage. Gail wasn't having it and told Todd, tell your client to give me her cell phone. If your client hasn't cheated during the marriage, then she won't have a problem with my IT guy copying everything on it and downloading everything and any online accounts she's logged into. I can have him here in 10 minutes. Wendy clutched her cell phone with both hands, refusing to hand it over. Todd whispered something to Wendy. I'm certain he told her she just admitted to cheating. More sobbing. I smiled underneath my mask but said nothing. At this point, I felt sorry for Todd. Call it professional empathy. I've been in his shoes before. You know you've got a loser case with a loser client. The other attorney is 1982 to 1986 Wayne Gretzky, and you're a second-string high school goalie with a slow glove hand. Basically, you just want the beating to end. When the meeting was over, I left without saying a word to Wendy. What's the use? Every word out of her mouth is going to be a lie. Gail received the signed separation agreement yesterday afternoon. I thought I'd be on the hook for the rent until June, if only to protect my own credit, but instead we're going to equally divide the homeowner payment savings account. This was the carrot to get Wendy to sign the separation agreement so quickly. Wendy will pay the rent herself starting this month, along with all utilities, etc. Between housing costs and her school costs, she'll have a little money left over, enough to move to a new place. Apparently, Wendy thinks this was a win for her, but it's a tactical move that eliminates the one significant asset we had. Divorce now will be much easier. Gail is preparing a petition for an uncontested divorce, so we won't even have to go to court. Here's the best news. Turns out that while we were in our 5th year of marriage, we haven't been married for a full 5 years. 4 years and 7 months. In our state, if the marriage is less than 5 full years, then the family court typically seeks rescission, a concept borrowed from contract law. This means the court will put the parties back in the financial position they were in before the agreement, or in our case, before the marriage. Immediately before marriage, I was a jobless, heavily indebted law school graduate waiting on my bar results, while Wendy was a full-time, gainfully employed teacher with no real property, no children, her account full of money, a teaching credential, a graduate degree in hand, and soon a doctoral degree to go with it. Wendy can't make the argument that rescission isn't appropriate in this case. In short, no alimony. Gail did warn Todd that if Wendy contests the divorce, the first person she'll depose will be Bob. Todd replied that Wendy agreed not to contest the divorce. If all goes well, 3 months from now, I will be putting this sad chapter of my life behind me. I still feel nothing for Wendy, but that no longer scares me. The Redditor who said it was because the Wendy I dated, the one I married, never existed was right. You, sir, are wise. The Wendy I dated, fell in love with, and married never existed. The person who cheated on me and lied to me is a stranger. Our entire relationship was all a lie, an elaborate plan B illusion that benefited her at my expense. I think my mindset also has to do with my first real job between college and law school when I worked in commission sales. There was a phrase drilled into our heads. You have to get through a lot of NOs to get one yes, so don't worry about the NOs. Don't waste your time and effort on them, and you'll find your yeses a lot faster and easier. Wendy was a NO, and I wasted too much time and effort on her already, so no more. Friends, family, and coworkers have noted that my smile is back, and to be honest, I feel better than I have in years. But just to be on the safe side, I have scheduled a few phone/Skype appointments with a therapist. We'll see how that goes. This will likely be my last update. Thank all of you again for your support and wisdom. If I can repay your excellent advice with some of my own, if your spouse cheats on you, talk to a lawyer as quickly as possible, and then listen to what your lawyer tells you to do. Now on to the next story. Story 9. Was I really in the wrong for going to my ex-daughter-in-law's wedding? I, 56F, have 2 children, Bob, 30M, and Alice, 27F. This is about Bob. He used to be married to my daughter-in-law, Ruth, 28F. That is until 5 years ago. Ruth discovered that Bob was cheating on her while she was pregnant with my granddaughter. I was really disappointed in my son. I taught him to be better than this. I am a single mom. My husband died years ago, and I have remarried only after my kids were in their late teens. I know for sure my late husband wouldn't approve of Bob's cheating. So, long story short, Bob, Ruth, and I had a fight. I told him I was very disappointed in him. How could he do this to his own wife? Bob yelled at me and said that I am his mother, not Ruth, so I should be taking his side. I said no, I will not support his infidelity under any circumstances. My daughter also thinks that her brother is wrong, but she is neutral about it. Bob was mad and left the house. I only saw him at the divorce hearings. I left him messages that if he wants to talk, I would be open to talk, but he didn't respond to my messages. Ruth was an orphan. She didn't have anyone else, so she saw me as her mother even after the divorce. She would visit me and bring me some gifts, like flowers or cookies. I never stopped her. Ruth also never stopped calling me mom even after her divorce. I also love spending time with her and my granddaughter. About 3 years ago, I set up Ruth with my friend Patty's son, John. Patty and I have been close friends since childhood. She knew Ruth really well and loved her too. It was Patty's idea to set her son up with my dill. Ruth and John totally hit it off. John was also a good father figure to her daughter. Recently, John and Ruth got married. Ruth wanted me to be there to walk her down the aisle. She told me she walked down the aisle alone when she was married to my son. But now she wants me to walk her down. I was happy for it, so I said yes. The news reached my son. He called me to again yell at me that what I am doing is wrong. I shouldn't be talking to Ruth because she and him are divorced. He forbade me to go. I told him he was being irrational. Even if he is divorced, that doesn't mean I have to cut off Ruth. I reminded him that it was his poor choice that led him to this. I didn't listen to my son and went to the wedding anyways. My son got the news and was pissed. He kept cursing me that I am a deadbeat mom who left her own son for a WH0 He called me a hypocrite that I didn't go to his wedding. He married his mistress but was gallivanting at Ruth's wedding. My husband is with me, but he says my son has a point, but my daughter says otherwise. Was I wrong to go to her wedding? Edit. My son has emailed me to meet him. I guess I will have to meet him now. Where did I go wrong? Edit. My husband died when my daughter was only 5 years old. The death of their father came as a shock to Bob. I tried my best to comfort him. I took him to therapists and trauma experts. They all said he is a good boy and very well behaved. The only father figure Bob had was his uncle, my brother. He was a nice man as well, a man with discipline. Ever since my kids were little, I tried my best to be a good parent. I stopped dating for a long time so that I can focus on my kids. I gave them important lessons in life. I even told them about their dad. My late husband was a man of dignity and morals. He is the type of person who wouldn't sacrifice his morals to please people around him. I always tried to be both parents, but I guess I wasn't enough. My son started dating my dill, Ruth 28F, when he was 20. They met at a restaurant where Ruth was a part-time worker. I liked Ruth. She was well-mannered and had a good heart. I told my son he picked the right woman for him. Bob was head over heels for her. They got married 2 years after dating. Ruth finished her degree early and got a job as a teacher at the age of 22. I noticed that my son didn't like it. He would complain about Ruth's OD hours, which I think was irrational because she was a kindergarten teacher. I explained this to my son that Ruth has her own life, a life outside his own. I told him if he had concerns about her time, he should take it up to her. He said he understood. Things were really calm for a year. A year later, they started having another fight. Ruth said that she wanted to pursue her master's. She is still young and wanted to do something meaningful with her degree. Honestly, I was in support. Ruth was a prodigy, but my son objected. He thought that it was a bad idea and that it would cause trouble. Now, I don't like to mix in their lives. I tried to stay away from their conflict. That is until one day Ruth came to me and said Bob threatened to leave her if she ever tried to pursue a master's degree. I did give my son an earful, and honestly, I took it as an offense because I worked jobs to support my family. I worked hard, and now I have my own business. It is just so disappointing to me that my son had such backward thinking. A few weeks later, Ruth came to me and said she was pregnant. She forgot all about her master's. I tried to be there for her as much as possible. Later, Ruth discovered my son was cheating on her with a mutual friend of theirs. Ruth was devastated. I called a family meeting. There, Ruth was crying and told Bob how could he do this to her. Bob said things like Ruth doesn't love him. She doesn't make him feel special. Her friend always fulfills his needs and understands him better. He realized he was wasting his 20s by playing family with a woman who always fights him. I asked what were the fights and what did Ruth do to make him so angry. He said her whole existence just bothers me. She cares more about her higher education than me. If she was a good wife, she would be a housewife rather than going out. I reminded him that I also had higher educations. He said that's different. They argued a lot. My son just called her a WH0 and a bish tch the whole time. Moreover, he is an absent father to his own daughter. He pays child support but barely makes time for his daughter. He went low contact when I stood my ground and told him I will not support his infidelity at any cost. I met his mistress because he insisted I give her a chance and told me that after meeting her, I would change my mind about Ruth, but he was wrong. His mistress was not a nice person. My gut was telling me she was not a good-hearted either. She made an odd comment that she was saving my son from a potential bad marriage and I should be happy for him. I told him I will not be at his wedding if he marries the woman who wrecked his home. I know my son is more to blame, but she knew Ruth and Bob. She knew they were married. Recently, Ruth got married to John, my friend's son. Ruth asked me to walk her down the aisle. It reached my son's ears, and he called me all sorts of vile names. He forbade me to go to her wedding and called me a hypocrite because I didn't come to his wedding, but I was going to Ruth's. I just told him to calm down and talk to me when he is not acting like a baby. I just feel like a failure, like I failed my late husband too. My late husband would be disappointed in my son as well. I don't know where I went wrong. I tried my best to provide. Maybe not having a father made him like this. I sometimes now regret having him as my son, but I still love him, but I don't love the man he turned out to be. I guess being a single mom was a curse after all. Update. February 24th, 2023. First of all, thank you for your comments. Although I got some hate comments calling me a bad mom and a failure, it was nice to see people supported me. It gave strength to know was not making a bad decision. So now on to the update. My son emailed me and said he wants to talk to me. I thought I should have a long conversation with him, but I made some ground rules. He is not allowed to criticize or call anyone any names like the last time and will be civil when I am talking. He agreed. He came to my house yesterday during noon. My husband was off to work, and my daughter was in her room. He sat down, and there were moments of awkward silence. He asked me how I was and we had small talk. I asked him about his wife and that's when he started to cry, not ugly crying, just a few tears. I can tell he is not doing well. I sat beside him and told him he can tell me. He tells me everything. He tells me that he is sorry for how he reacted. He understands why I might be ashamed of him. He later tells me his marriage is not going well, that his wife is no way near as good as Ruth was. Ruth took care of all of his needs and loved him, yet he treated Ruth like trash. He is constantly fighting with his new wife. He knew he messed up a lot. He learned that the last time he visited his daughter, and she kept referring to John as her dad. Bob tried to make her say the word dad, and she screamed at him by saying, "You are not my dad." He saw how much happy Ruth was with another man, and he realized what he has lost. I asked him, "Would you have missed Ruth if your wife did those same things for you like Ruth did?" He was silent. I further told him it seems to me that he only kept Ruth in his life because he used her to fulfill his needs. I explained to him about my relationship with his father. We were with each other not because I fulfilled his needs. We were with each other because we loved each other, and that love didn't stop when one person was at the most vulnerable and weak. But he, my son, left Ruth when she was vulnerable and needed him the most. His needs were fulfilled when Ruth was just a housewife working a small job, but as soon as she has no need, he discarded her. It really hit him hard as he was sobbing. He said that he knows he was a shy person, but he was manipulated by that BTCH. He said that about his wife. To be honest, I lost my cool and yelled. He should stop blaming other people for his mistake. It was his decision to cheat. It was his decision to leave Ruth. It was his decision to abandon his daughter. He cannot run away from his responsibilities and wonder why nobody is taking his side. Moreover, he hasn't learned anything from his mistakes because he is still calling his wife vile names. This is the same girl he claimed as better than Ruth. He had a choice not to cheat. He could have pushed her away when she tried to seduce him, but he didn't because in his mind, he made this fantasy that Ruth doesn't care about him because all she ever wanted was to complete her education. I raised him better than this. He is not just insulting my upbringing. He is also insulting his own father, and he will only see suffering in his life unless he takes full accountability of his actions. He told me he knows I was disappointed in him, and he wants to make things right. He is trapped in a bad marriage because God is punishing him for how he treated his daughter and ex-wife. I told him if he wants to be a good man, he should start by apologizing to Ruth and become cordial with his daughter. I also gave him a reality check that his daughter already sees John as her dad, so I have doubt she would start calling him dad anytime soon, but he should at least try. I told him to apologize to his sister as well. If he is really miserable in his marriage, he should get a divorce or try counseling. Whatever decision he makes, I will support him, but that does not mean I will forgive his wife because she has also did Ruth wrong unless she makes an apology to Ruth. I don't think I can see her as a decent person. Lastly, I told him that even though I am very much disappointed in him, I still love him. I will always guide him to what is right. He will always be my son. But this is his chance to be a better man. I believe in second chances. This time I hope he cleans up his act. I am proud of him that he acknowledges his wrongdoings. Comments. Do your son a favor. Get some therapy recommendations for him and hand him the list. On things like this one, doesn't just clean up his act. That is vague and doesn't tell him how to do it. We need to do with the pull yourself up by the bootstraps mentality when it comes to stuff like this. If he wants to do the work to improve his relationship with his daughter, she can have two dads. Frankly speaking, he has to work on himself. Op replies, I told him he should get therapy. If he needs money for that, I will give it to him. But he does need therapy. But about his daughter, I still have hope. Bob said he has tried to be there for his daughter, but his daughter still wants John as her dad. He has to start with baby steps. He can arrange the custody with Ruth or simply make full use of his visitations. I feel like I am cheating on my now husband with my dead husband. February 27, 2023. This is my throwaway. I will delete it soon. It's been 22 years since my husband died in an accident. I remember in his last moments he was doing fine. He was too weak to speak but still managed to say that he loves me and he loves his kids. Me and my late husband have this thing where we would write a letter to each other once a year, and it has to be handwritten. In his last letter he mentioned death. He said if death comes, then I should remember that he loves me with all his heart, and he doesn't have any regrets. I guess he somehow knew this would be his last letter. I still have that letter. I still have a place for him in my heart. He was not just my husband. He is also the father of my kids. How can I forget him just like that? I didn't date for a long time, mainly because I focused on raising my two kids, but also because I couldn't find anyone even comparable to my husband. I met my now husband when my daughter was 15. My son was also 18 and in college. He is sweet, kind, gentle, and funny. He always has this positive outlook on life. After a long time, I had this butterfly in my stomach kind of feeling. I fell in love with him. We got married after dating for 4 years. My husband is also a widower. He also has kids who are a little older than my kids and left the nest early. I've built a second home with my husband. I am happy. I love this man, and I want nothing more than to enjoy his company as much as I can. But lately, I've been going through some personal stuff with my son. It made me miss my late husband even more. His stuff is still in my basement. I couldn't have the heart to throw it all out. I still have his camera, his pocket watch, the Rubik's Cube he liked to solve, his books, and most importantly, his letters. I miss him so much, but sometimes I feel like I am doing unfair to my husband. He is such a good man. I feel like I am cheating on him. I know it is not possible, but still, I try my best to not think about him, but I do. It's hard not to. Am I cheating? Is this normal? I don't want to keep my husband in the dark. Care about him. I respect him. He doesn't deserve a wife who cheats. Final update. March 28, 2023. Hello folks. Thanks for showing me a lot of love and support. I am really overwhelmed with it. It has been a month since my last post. Things are fine now. I will be giving updates from our SL marriage post too. Well, first of all, my daughter moved out from my house. She was living with us along with her fiancé to save money to buy their own place. I am happy for her. The house just feels empty without her, but I will get over it. About my post on marriage subreddit, I talked to my husband about my feelings towards my late husband. He was surprisingly fine. He told me he understands that I miss him sometimes. He misses his dead wife too. He still keeps a picture of her with him. I don't mind it. He further told me that the pain we both went through is something no one would understand, and he doesn't feel like I am betraying him by missing my dead husband. He was my family, and it is normal to miss family. I'm glad I had this talk with him. I fell in love with him even more. Ruth and John are doing fine. She announced that they are expecting a child together, and Ruth asked me to be the godmother. I am really overwhelmed and happy for them, though I still don't know whether I should be her kid's godmother or not. Now on to my son. He has decided to separate from his wife. I guess his marriage has problems, and he is trying to sort it out on his own. He is in therapy. I support him in his journey. Things between my granddaughter and him are still a bit sour, but I'm helping as a middleman. He talked to Ruth about a change in custody, but she said no because given how he has treated her in the past couple of years, she doesn't trust him. I know Bob is sad, but I assured him he shouldn't give up now. He should still fulfill his duty as a dad. He meets my granddaughter at my house right now. They are playing snakes and ladders in my living room. My son has been really trying to be a better version of himself, and I support that. I hope in the future things will improve for him. Thank you so much for helping a mother out here. I know if I ever have any issues I cannot solve, I can always count on the kind people of Reddit. Now on to the next story. Story 10. I thought my husband cheated on me when he didn't. Now I want him back. Cheating is something that I have always had strong opinions about. I have been cheated on before and it sucked. Everyone knows that I don't forgive cheaters, so when my sister-in-law, my husband's sister, staged an elaborate scheme about my husband cheating, I ended the relationship. My relationship, unfortunately, wasn't the only one that was affected. My sister-in-law, Lisa, 32, her best friend, Emma, 32, and my husband, Jamie, 29, were best friends growing up. Emma got married early when she was 20. Her husband was abusive. She has 2 children with him. She got divorced 10 years later, and she was finally free from his abuse. She suffered a lot, however, and was probably still is in therapy, her and her children. I, 30, met Jamie 4 years ago. We got married 2 years later. Everything was just awesome. What I didn't know was that Emma wanted Jamie, and Lisa made it her mission, when Emma finally got divorced, to bring her brother and best friend together. I didn't know any of this, so I never knew there was a hidden agenda. When a few months into my marriage, I overheard Lisa talking about how Jamie was cheating with a married colleague of his. In hindsight, I can tell it was staged because she was saying unnecessary details and was very loud. She meant for me to hear it. I confronted her then and there, and she played very flustered and apologized and begged me not to ruin my marriage. She told me Jamie loved me and she never wanted to lose me as a sister, but at the same time, she provided me with pictures and texts. They were all photoshopped of my husband and his colleague. She begged me not to mention where I found out, and I was grateful for her support and promised her not to expose her as the source. I confronted my husband with everything, and he adamantly refused to admit to anything. It hurt me more that he never admitted nor apologized ever. He asked me where I got this from, but I kept my promise and told him it was an anonymous tip. I also went so far that I contacted the colleague's husband at the time. I thought it was the right thing to do. The colleague is this very beautiful woman that my husband worked very closely with, many hours a day. I was a bit jealous of that, and I confided my fears with Lisa. She used it against me. I asked for a divorce, and the colleague's husband did too after that. Lisa, who I thought was my friend, who called me her sister, disappeared from my life like I never existed. Even when I bumped into her, she was short with me and indifferent. Months went by, and I was still heartbroken, processing the separation. My husband stopped trying to make me see reason and agreed to divorce. He said he wanted to move on. I started having doubts. Why is Lisa doing this now? She was my friend and one of the best for me, yet now she didn't even answer my texts. I follow both her and Emma on Insta, and I started seeing how Emma and my husband gradually started hanging out at least once a week. Emma or Lisa shared stories about my husband with Emma and her children. What I did next is very questionable, and yet I don't regret it at all. I was desperate, and I needed the truth. I was still very good friends with Lisa's on-again, off-again boyfriend, Mike's sister. I told her my doubts and everything. I told her that Lisa was my source, that my husband was cheating, and that I'm starting to doubt everything, and that I needed their help to unearth the truth. Mike was easier to persuade to help me than I expected. He had Lisa's passcodes and he went through her messages with Emma, and there was everything. They have plotted They used my idiocy and insecurity and made me throw the best thing that has ever happened to me. He sent me all the proof I needed, even the original photos they used to Photoshop my husband with his colleague. My world was turned upside down again, and I went down a deeper depression. I stayed in bed, called in sick for 2 weeks. I have not only ruined my life but also another family. I don't know why I'm writing here, if I want advice or just vent. I don't blame anyone but my stupidity for ruining my marriage. I should have trusted my husband and the love he showed me. I should have been honest with him about everything and where I got the news that he was cheating from. I should have not gone to hurt the colleague and her family just because I thought her beautiful. She has since quit her job and moved, but I still had her husband's contact information. I had to at least apologize. We met and I told him everything. He was so angry with me. He was crying and yelling at me, and all I could think was that I deserved every insult he threw my way. I found the colleague on Instagram and everything in a long apology. She didn't answer me. I don't know if I should tell my husband too. I know I don't deserve him at all, and I know that he doesn't want me anymore, but maybe he should just know what Emma is doing and what she's capable of doing. He deserves to know the truth. Maybe I could start with reassuring him that I'm not trying to win him back. I'm just trying to help him understand and apologize. I need to apologize for everything. I don't know. Update. Hi, I have now an update. Thank you for being so supportive. I honestly didn't expect that, given how long and boring my story was. I remember being so desperate and wanted to tell everything from the beginning and put it out there, maybe to try and make excuses for myself and for what I did. I appreciate that you wanted to help. I decided not to meet up with Jamie. Every time I tried to text him and ask for meeting me, I panic. That wasn't a good sign at all. I wanted him to know everything in detail, and I tend to be all over the place when I'm panicking, so I decided to email him instead. I made a lot of drafts, cross-checked all the information, and waited a whole day before sending, adding some details here and there that I've forgotten to include. I sent him all the manipulated pictures and the original, every screenshot Mike sent me from Lisa and Emma's conversations. I made it clear, however, that I wasn't trying to manipulate him to have me back because I knew that what I did was unforgivable, but that I wanted to warn him about who he's dealing with. I told that I've been watching Emma and Lisa's IG, and I've seen that he was getting cozier with Emma. I wanted him to know all the facts if he was dating her. This took all my energy to write. Just the thought of him dating Emma, I can't. I texted him that I've sent him an important email. He didn't answer me on Wednesday. When I came back from work, Lisa, Emma, and Emma's 2 children were waiting for me outside of my building. When I let them in, stupid Melissa started yelling and threatening me. She told me to call and tell Jamie and Mike that I have made up all of this because I'm a pathetic loser. She told me I didn't want her as an enemy because she would make my life sour. Believe me, you don't want me to make destroying your already miserable life my mission. Emma just smiled the whole time. She later said that my husband always had a crush on her and that he wouldn't believe my nonsense because he could finally be with her. The thing is, it felt like Lisa was more angry that Mike knew what she did rather than her brother, and she really was annoyed about Emma and told her to shut up all the time. I couldn't get them out of my apartment, so I just left and called Jamie. I told him that they were at my place and that I couldn't get them out. 15 minutes later, I saw them leave. Jamie texted then that he wanted to come over if I was all right with it. #yes. He told me that he was very hurt that I would doubt him like this and believe rumors. I told him everything again without panicking. I told him that I loved and trusted Lisa. She was like my sister, and I asked him to put himself in my shoes, and if he happened to hear Lisa talk about me being unfaithful, would he have any doubts in his loving sister's intentions. He stayed the night and left next morning. We have been texting several times a day and talking on the phone and FaceTime every night since. He says that he loves me, but that he doesn't know what to do. He is very hurt by his sister and Emma, of course, but even by me. He hasn't talked about canceling the divorce process yet. I will just have to wait, and that's understandable. I've turned his life upside down twice in such a short period. On a happier note, my husband's colleague and her husband are back together. My husband met with them and apologized. I've already told them everything, but my husband felt the need to apologize personally. Mike has ended it with Lisa. Lisa and Emma's relationship is very strained. Both have blocked me of course, but apparently Lisa is blaming Emma for Mike leaving her, and Emma has tried to throw Lisa under the bus by telling Jamie she was innocent in all of this. I really hope my husband forgives me, and I promise that I will make it up to him and love him forever. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.